All right, how's it going, everybody? It's Adam,
Eric.
and I have a really small. I don't know why it printed so small. It's a transcript of essentially what the doctor said. Eric was seeing it. You didn't. You weren't gonna. Were you gonna tell you what doctor you saw? I saw. Yes, Eric. I was gonna say who you saw. He saw an autoimmune neurologist at Salt Lake City Hospital, who's one of the top guys there. So that was fun. And I went with him just to be there in case he had any questions for me or if he wanted, I don't know, just to be there. Why was it? Why was I there?
You were there to see if you could get an appointment with him without having to go up through the system.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And I basically did. Because I'll probably see him next month, but that's still pending. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read this transcript so you guys can kind of hear what the doctor had to say. And then Eric can interject whenever he feels like, as per usual. And at the end, we'll kind of discuss what's going on. So he said, holy shit balls, that is loud. It's fine. Is it fine? Yeah, it's fine. He said, so in looking back through all your workup, the big thing that sticks out is your abnormal spinal fluid testing. Mild.
The workup that was done when I was at the hospitalized.
Say again.
That was the workup that was done when I was hospitalized. So they did a lumbar puncture and a bunch of other labs, etc.
Yeah, and yes. So you said mild elevation of your white blood cell count and pretty, not like light your hair on fire levels, but your protein was high as well. It's not like a couple points high. It was like mid 90s, which is pretty solidly high. When that's the case, one of the things we wonder about is if there's some sort of inflammatory process going on
This is where I
within,
self-lied,
yeah, within the central nervous system.
because 13 months ago I texted my sister saying I think I have autoimmune encephalitis, which is an auto-inflammatory process in the brain, which he just fucking stated out loud. And all it took was 13 months to get somebody to say it. Last specialist, MS specialist, said it was indicative of cerebral injury, but is in itself not insignificant, which I thought was funny.
It was not.
Right. And then he also said that spinal pressure doesn't, opening pressure, which is inferential of intracranial pressure, doesn't matter, which is hilarious because it does matter because it can cause brain damage.
Yeah. So right off the rip, he's basically saying it's indicative of an inflammatory process, which we've been screaming out through every window and on every mountaintop for ages.
Fucking person on the planet has been shitting down my throat on this subject for the past 13 months.
I know. How stressful is that when you've been saying the same thing over and over?
I've been saying it's an inflammatory process of the brain for months and months and months and months, and everyone just keeps saying, is it psych? Is it this? Is it this medication that you're taking? Is it blah? Are you depressed? Are you anxious? Are you blah blah? Are you having FND, functional neurological disorder? Blah 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 blah. No, and I was just sitting there charging ahead with the idea of autoimmune encephalitis for ages, and then now I get in front of an autoimmune guy, and he's basically validating that, which I should be happy, but I'm also a bit cranky, not only because I feel terrible, but because everybody in my life basically shat on that idea for a year.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help with the trauma when literally everyone's saying it's something other than what you think it is. And then, but it is validating when someone says something like this. So he says his white blood cell count was elevated. His protein was pretty solidly high in the mid 90s. And he says, when that's the case, one of the things we wonder about is there some sort of inflammatory process going on within the central nervous system? Now, it doesn't tell us one condition versus another, but it definitely does send us down the rabbit hole of if that's what's going on, what could it be? The other thing is there's another set of antibodies that I'd like to test, and that would be another thing that we should look out for, because that's one thing. Could there be an underlying autoimmune encephalitis driver of some of these symptoms? Which, again, kind of reiterates what Erica and I have been saying for a very long time, but he's also talking about testing more novel antibodies, not through Mayo, where pretty much everybody gets an antibody test done, but different antibodies done by a different group. So he says himself, could there be an underlying autoimmune encephalitis driving some of these symptoms? So as part of today, we will kind of broaden that testing. The other thing that I wonder about is there's a newer realm within the field of autoimmune neurology where we're seeing these genetic pro-inflammatory processes that are a little bit trickier to pin down. And I think that's worth looking at. And so he suggests doing genetic testing, which I got a blood draw for, to test for any abnormal genes that might transcript proteins that are pro-inflammatory. I'm basically going to reread that when I read this transcript. The reason is some of these kind of pro-inflammatory genetic conditions do tend to have more specific treatments that have been recommended now. But I think those from a testing standpoint are where I'd start trying to figure out exactly what's going on. From a treatment standpoint, oftentimes insurance companies are sticklers when it comes to IVIG, which we've experienced, until we have more of a clear answer. I think it's given your previous twice abnormal spinal fluid studies from a year ago and recently when he was hospitalized. I do think we want to make sure we are doing a thorough job pursuing any inflammatory autoimmune etiology that could be driving this, because certainly in the long term, that could potentially dictate what we do from a treatment standpoint. Eric then asks about rituximab, which is a I said then. Then Eric then asks about rituximab, which is a monoclonal antibody that latches onto B cells, which are a type of cell in your immune system that proliferates down into a bunch of different cells, and if you neutralize that, and that's part of the problem, it can remove your symptoms essentially. So Eric asks about rituximab because it's a lot cheaper than IVIG. It could be basically covered without insurance, and he responds, "So Ritux," and he calls it Ritux probably because he prescribes it all the time. He says Ritux, from a risk-benefit standpoint, does have a higher degree of risk, kind of strictly from an immunosuppressive standpoint. Certain autoimmune conditions respond well to it, others don't. And strictly from a testing standpoint, both IVIG and rituximab can limit our ability to interpret testing down the road, which is kind of a lesser thing. The bigger thing is that I don't want to suppress your immune system without having a better idea about exactly what's going on. But I think before we go down the road too much of the more potent immunotherapies, my practice is to have a better idea of what we're going after. In the back of my head, the white blood cell count as well is, he says he thinks it's unlikely it's infectious, but if it is infectious, it's not good to suppress your immune system super hard, which rituximab would do. He says in theory, we haven't fully ruled it out. I think, let's kind of full umbrella with everything else that's going on, because obviously there's still gaps here and there. And so that's part of the genetic testing and testing for the other antibodies. And he says, we can see how steroids work. So he prescribed Eric some steroids, some Solumedrol high-dose IV steroids for a third time. We can see how the steroids work. And if they don't give us that gives us more ammunition towards insurance that this is refractory towards steroids again, and that we'd have to escalate to different medications like IVIG or rituximab. Eric then asks about elevated protein in the CSF and what that is indicative of. And he says, so it's mostly indicative of infectious or inflammatory process going on within the central nervous system. So that's, from an objective standpoint, plus the white blood cell count being elevated, are two of the most concerning things. Those are two of them that are the most concerning of some underlying inflammatory etiology of some sort. So he's really leaning towards inflammatory process, but he just wants to figure out exactly what's going on. Eric asks the final question about high intracranial pressure and its correlation to protein, and he says it's a good question. It's again not super specific. Sometimes people just have it. I don't think that's what's going on here, but some people have idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Usually that's basically headache and vision changes. Like you literally have a headache and you bend over and your vision kind of grays out. That'd be kind of idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Usually that's okay, and not like yours. So he says not like yours. Again, it puts us more in the question of inflammatory picture of things, our elevated intracranial pressure. He talks more about specific niche antibody tests, and then he says, since you're symptomatic, if we do find a genetic condition that says you're overproducing X, Y, or Z inflammatory protein, then I would say based on what's that protein is in the symptomatic standpoint, that I can say that's likely the cause of what's going on. Eric does what's called a MOCA test, which is a pretty basic cognitive test, and he absolutely,
That's where you go basic, super easy.
yeah, it is, and he totally bombed it. He forgot the
Totally.
he did. I was listening, he just messed up left and right. So he bombed it, which is good because it's just like it's nice to have a metric to see where it shows that he's kind of fucked up, and that as he tries different medication, if he improves, if that score starts going up, doing the MOCA test,
It is very basic.
it's good. And then they draw labs, and we kind of call it a day. So the whole picture is, right now we were waiting on genetic testing and more the labs to come back for antibodies for Eric.
And steroids.
Yeah. Do you have anything? Oh yeah, and he's gonna do 5 days, maybe if he can make it. Pretty intense of IV steroids.
5 days is all that. Yeah.
And then I will be scheduled with him. I asked him. I was like, okay, what about me? Because I have like some people on my schedule, but you seem pretty boss. Like, what do I want? I would like to get on your schedule if possible, kind of thing. He said he'll talk to his scheduler to get me on his schedule, and we'll do telehealth, so I don't have to travel anywhere. And so hopefully there's something comes back in the genetic testing or the antibodies, and if it doesn't, we kind of tried asking him like, what if nothing comes back? Like, what would you do? But he was really resistant against saying what he would do if that happened. Right? When you agree?
Yeah, I think we asked that question twice, relatively phrased slightly differently, but he didn't have an answer. He wasn't like, okay, then we'll just jump straight to rituximab or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but
I think he's being
also
conservative.
having somebody in the room, you wouldn't believe how hard it is to get somebody in, like, to examine you and not say something fucking stupid as hell, like, you know, idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Like, shut up, or like a functional neurological disease. Shut up. Like, if I had been under his care a year ago and I had elevated protein and elevated intracranial pressure and all that shit, then I'd probably be a lot farther by now.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's
everybody.
like, it's just testament to how hard it is to get traction in
Well,
the medical system when you know you have a problem. You know the exact problem, and you can't get people to fucking get on board with it. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean the amount of like oddball theories that people have spouted out over the past year and a half
Disgusting.
is just
Shameful.
ridiculous, and like
Embarrassing.
I've been argued against, and it's like you kind of generally have a pretty good idea of what's going on with your body, unless you're an idiot, which some people are dumb and they just think it's cancer or whatever, and it's not. But generally, you have a good idea what's going on with your body, and nobody was able to like argue any points that were logical of why it wouldn't be an inflammatory process. I mean, we're twins undergoing the same exact thing. It feels like inflammation. So there's obviously a genetic link between the two of us, and then there's probably an external factor that triggered it within both of us. So yeah, it's been absolutely ridiculous. But having someone say like basically like 4 times that we're basically looking at we're looking at an inflammatory condition. We just want to figure out what it is before we start hammering it with treatment, because some treatment might be ineffective, and if it's ineffective, then what do we do from there? Because we don't know, does that disprove or prove? Like if you did rituximab.
I think he's a little, like, I get his take, round out the picture or whatever, but it's a little sheepish. And maybe I'm just being pessimistic here because it was a step in the right direction. Especially hearing somebody say,
Well, he said not a hard no to rituximab.
"Yeah, I know," but
So
I mean, I'm getting hit with steroids for the third time.
it's just complaining. I'd like to.
Can I complain? I fucking have every right to complain.
Sure, I'm just saying that overall the appointment went well. I don't think he was being that much of a sissy. I think he just wanted to make sure that everything was
No, but
covered every gap before he started treatment. Right?
We'll see. I don't know what it'll do.
I don't know.
I don't know what it'll do if nothing comes back. If he'll just go, okay, yeah, rituximab. Like, I'm not sure he's gonna do that, or push IVIG through insurance and actually get it through. So that's part of the reason why I want you to keep your appointment with the other doctor, because you never know if a doc just falls through.
So nothing positive to say about that appointment,
I
or
feel terrible. So yeah, it was a good appointment. It was a good appointment. I didn't get what I wanted, which was a treatment beyond steroids. It just felt like steroids again. Steroids. Like, I'm so sick of fucking steroids. Um, but I got somebody to tell me that it's a pro-inflammatory process, most likely based off of my labs.
are you able to get chart notes?
Eventually, yeah, once he signs off on it. But being in a situation where I'm absolutely fucking miserable every second of every day, I'm like, let's do the steroids already, or let's keep.
Oh, so you want steroids?
Yeah, I want steroids. I think I could possibly improve with them, but
Okay, so
I would
don't
like.
complain about the steroids. Then.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's been conservative, but what doctor have we seen hasn't been conservative? Number one.
How does that make that a valid approach?
It makes it valid. It goes to show that there's a common thread throughout.
So you're saying all the doctors?
So you're saying like he would just give rituximab? You think that'd be reasonable?
I think it would be reasonable to try to push IVIG through insurance again, and then
Why didn't you
at the
ask
same
him?
time. I did. He said there's sticklers about getting IVIG through, so he wanted to do steroids first. I'm not sure how it's gonna help unless I don't respond to steroids, and then that might help get IVIG through, but barely. I can't, you know. Can't you just slap the IV or the insurance company with some logic? It's fucking ridiculous. I mean, the insurance companies are fucking ridiculous because it's like, how many doctors do you need to send in a prior auth or IVIG before, they recognize that it's indicated? That would be 3 now. What's the fucking point of insurance?
Everybody knows insurance sucks. Okay. What? I was just saying, okay. I was all like, I'm just gonna read the transcript and then. All right, that's it. I have an appointment with somebody else in the middle of the month who's also an autoimmune specialist. I'll probably go to ahead of the guy Eric saw, just to get a second opinion.
Well, because she's their last beacon. She's the last. There's nobody left after that. It's just her, and then everyone after that is just a nobody. I'm canceling on today because they're nobodies. I can't find a single review on them or a picture. So, yeah, no, thank you. I don't think they're gonna be up to date on the newest information on autoimmune neurological conditions because they're fucking 72.
Well,
Do I sound dour?
yeah, I don't get it. Like, you didn't get what you wanted, which is rituximab. But if you got rituximab and had no response, how would you feel?
That's a dumb question.
No, it's
What
not.
if you got all the treatment you ever wanted? You never.
No, that's not what I asked. I asked if you got rituximab and you didn't respond, how would you feel?
I would like
Confused. So would the doctor. The doctor would be confused. They'd be like, am I doing the right thing? Is it the right treatment? Blah, blah, blah. I don't get how. There's a reason why no one wants to do rituximab. Whatever, bro. You can be as poopy as you want, but I feel like he literally said inflammatory process like a million times. So that's in his mind, is that what's going on is a genetic predisposition to an inflammatory process. I don't know how that's a bad thing.
No, it's not. I never said that was a bad thing.
Yeah, but you're getting all salty at Mr. Good Guy.
I'm getting salty because I'm in pain.
Okay. Well, if you want to do a separate video where you talk about your pain, that's fine.
Isn't this just a document the journey, right? So
Okay. Well, I know.
So like, you're supposed to document what it's like to fucking have an inflammatory condition of the brain and nobody believes you. So there's that.
Somebody believes you.
Okay. You know how a guy that believes. Great.
This person believes you. Mom believes you.
I have no symptom relief.
I believe you. Paul believes you. You're not. I think what's coming out of this is like, yeah, it's going to be a little bit longer but we literally have a doctor who's saying all the right. He didn't say one dumb thing. There's not one thing in this whole transcript or even in the whole appointment, which was like an hour, where he said one single dumb thing. I can think of every
That's
single
true.
appointment I've had where the doctor said something where I was like ready to fight him on. This is one doctor who never said one thing that I found stupid. The one thing I found kind of annoying is that we weren't jumping straight into treatment, but also at the same time, like I understood where he's coming from, and he's doing more testing. He's taking you seriously. Like why put a sour spin on it? I don't exactly get it. You're getting steroids. I have to wait. I have to wait and get an appointment like in March. It's probably gonna be mid March with him, and then I'll get steroids. So, and we have testing going out and testing that's gonna come back. So I'm just saying there's plenty of reason to stay positive.
Ow.
Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. Love each and every one of you, especially in a unique way. This is Adam and Eric out. Peace.